largest standard deviation. And if it's, say, twice as large as the smallest standard deviation, I might have a host elasticity problem. We didn't have that problem here. But now we're beginning to learn things by looking at the data. I don't know about you, but does anybody see anything interesting here? Nothing jumps out at you?
The spread of the 50-50 is much wider than the spread of the other two.
Yeah, it's much wider. So there's a ton more variability here in the 50-50 24-hour group. Would this be standard of care or not? I don't know. Let's make it up. Standard of care. There's very little variability in the standard of care group. Now, I don't know what that means, but that's interesting. Maybe. I'd have to again rely on subject matter expertise to think about what could possibly lead to that variability. Right? We use random assignment, so there were no. Let's think about that for a minute, right? There was no systematic differences in the patients, right? Because the groups were based on what? Chance, right? But it was a small sample. So is it possible for randomization to fail? No, randomization can fail. You could just get a shitty luck of the draw, but it's still luck of the draw, right? But still, why would we think? I mean, I don't know. I would begin to start thinking about or asking questions like, what could lead to the differences in the variability? Right? To me, that might be an interesting observation, and then subsequent research to be able to figure out. I don't know. Might it be that, I don't know, the nursing staff is really comfortable with oxygen, but the people who were administering the nitrous and oxygen mixture, there was a lot of variability in the way that it was administered. I don't know. That could, I mean, that's possible. That could explain that. I don't know. Okay. But it's not just the numbers we're looking at. We're looking at the patterns in the data too, all right? All right, what do you want to do next?
ANOVA.
Let's do the ANOVA. Thank you for taking the chance there. So we can use the ANOVA command and RCFL group, and what do we see? I don't know about you, the first thing on my eye is drawn to is that 28 right there. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. All right. Then I'm going to look at that and go, yay. Yay. I have a small p-value. Anybody remember how to interpret that? That's sort of like the standard deviation within the groups, right? That's the standard deviation within the groups. All right, the other way we could do it, there was another way that we talked about doing it. One way or another. I'm going to find you. Same. There you go. I I could only use the one-way command if I'm doing a one-factor ANOVA. Right? You can do a one-way, a two-way, a three-way, an n-way ANOVA. Okay. All right, so here we go. Same p-value, not surprising. Oh yay, Bartlett's test for equal variances, not significant, yay. That's good. All right, this is essentially another way of doing this, right? For those of you who have to submit to journals who don't know anything and you have to test for equal variance, there you go. Okay, so.
So what's the one-way comparing? Isn't that just if there's only two groups, or that's?
No, one factor.
Oh, okay.
One factor. Your factor can have two or more groups. That's a one-way ANOVA.
Okay.
Right? Okay. To me, this isn't this is not as useful for me as the other table, because if I want to get the r squared, then I got to do the arithmetic, and I'm lazy. Huh? To get the r squared. Right? To get the r squared, I take the sums of squares between groups and divide it by the total sums of squares. But you already knew that. All right. What do you want to do now? Declare victory, go home?
Figure out where the differences come from.
You want to figure out where the differences come from, right? Did we ever settle on how we're going to treat our variable? Was it ordinal?
I think so.
Try to switch.
Pick one. Doesn't really matter.
Well, it does matter,
Let's do
right?
both.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
we're,
I mean,
you
we
know,
have to learn how to do it both ways,
we're up
so
against the clock
I'll just
there.
learn.
All right. So, the easy thing to do would be to do PW comp. I think it's group. I forget now. No, it's not that. The command is PW compare. Margin list. All right, there we go. These are unadjusted p-values. These are unadjusted group differences. These are unadjusted group differences. Group mean differences. Right? So, one thing I could do is I could look at the confidence interval. This is statistically significant. These two are not. And how do I know that? Just by looking at the confidence interval.
Include zero.
Because these two include zero as a plausible value. Right? Okay. Facts. Let's use Chef A's test just because nobody ever uses it.
I love how it's
I know, right?
It sounds good, yeah.
I program in too many languages, I get confused.
PW
Do
comp
you need
to
to
what?
compare, or no?
It's just PW. It's or something like this.
The
It
PW.
doesn't work for me.
That's the problem.
Oh, I didn't do that yet.
There we go. Ha! All right,
What is M?
So what do we do?
margins? I'm trying to get the means from this.
Oh, for me.
Group?
CI margin of.
Group. It's group. There we go. Ha. There we go. So now we have our adjusted p-values. We have our adjusted p-values.
So what was the command that you settled on?
Oh, what was that?
Yeah.
And
Here we go. So, let's dissect this. PW compare stands for pairwise comparisons. What is the factor that I want to compare between, right? What are the levels I want to compare? The M compare is the multiple comparison adjustment. What goes in the parentheses is the type of adjustment that I want to do. Right? We talked about LSD, Tukey, Chef A's, Onferronis, Beefaroni, Chef Boyardee, all that stuff. Effects gives me my, tells me how many levels there are. Group tells me what my group means are. My adjusted group means. My predicted group means from my linear model. Right? A lot of times you'll read about least square means or LS means in a journal article. This is how you get those least square means.
Wait, say that again? What was the company?
The group command will give you your group means. Right? These are group means. And they would be referred to as adjusted means or least square means. If someone is a SAS user, they don't know what marginal means are. They don't even know what least square means are. They just know SAS produces it. So essentially what this does is it produces the, if we had covariates in a model, it would give you the means of group 1 at the overall mean of the covariate level.
Do you know the, when you're looking at the help and it says CI margins as means, so I put in CI margins instead of group. The difference, it gives the same thing except it gives 95% confidence.
Yeah.
It just runs the same thing, doesn't it?
Let's stop here for fear of you becoming comatose. And tomorrow we will pick up with, we will start logistic regression. Yeah. So I asked a couple of people last week about the pace of the class and things like that. Do you guys have any feedback for me? Let me share my thoughts with you. It's difficult to teach this class given the complete heterogeneity of the levels of preparedness for the class and, quite frankly, interest too. But in my opinion and in my estimation, we can't move on to things beyond like regression and ANOVA until we really get a solid understanding of what we have covered. This idea about how to set up models and ask questions and all that sort of stuff. Because what you're going to find starting tomorrow really is that it's the same stuff. So going forward into the more sophisticated models to me is meaningless unless you have a good grasp of what's going on in the basics. Because that's why I keep bringing you back to the basics, because it's all based on these basic concepts. So if you do have feedback and you're not comfortable sharing with it in public, just shoot me an email or something. It's, I've been trying different things with you guys this year. So.
I think the more you do this, the more you just start at the beginning with a data set and help us get started, and the way you do it today is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good feedback. I think one suggestion I'm gonna make to the curriculum committee, I don't know if you're gonna accept that, is maybe to have one person teach your first semester and second semester. And have that person also do the StataLab. That way everything is nicely integrated. The drawback of that is homogeneity of thought. So there is a drawback to that.
I think you're right, that would be so much better. I mean, how are you supposed to know we're gonna last semester, and then you don't have to you spent most of this time getting us back to basics, right?
Yeah. I have to do that for most regression classes though, so don't feel that.
I don't
It's-
know,
it's typical.
I really appreciate that you do it for us.
But, even though we did some neat regression models, some least squares regression models, it really gets back to bivariate correlation. And I hope you guys sort of grasp that, and even more so, I hope you grasp the concept that, that you really need to think, and it's not just taking numbers and cranking them through the computer, because the numbers, the computer will give you numbers. How do you make sense of them? That's sort of that's the important part. At least that's my teaching philosophy. Many people just give me the number, show me how to do it. Well, if you don't know what this means or how to think about it, what's the point? So.
I like discussing the articles, even though I didn't bring one in to discuss, I did find that helpful.
Okay.
Me too, for
Good.
sure.
It's actually most helpful.
Yeah, because a lot of times we don't know if they're doing it sort of right or not, or the setup maybe was wrong, and the
Right.
question could have been asked better, so I did find it helpful.
Yeah. The other part of my philosophy, and by the way, I'm not holding anybody. If you want to go, you can go without prejudice. It's okay. My philosophy about homework is also that it's for you. It's not for me. So if you don't do it, will you hurt me? No. I know how to do this stuff. I understand this stuff. And I have a sense that if I made it required, then more people would bring in their homework and things like that. But I don't want to do that. The other observation I make is I teach here, I've taught at the University of Delaware, and I also teach at the PCOM. At Penn, not only here in the School of Medicine, but over at Wharton Psychology and Education. It's funny, the observation I make is that people here are afraid to open up their mouth and be wrong. Right? We're like, well, what if I'm wrong? Well, you knew